Well, my students know that I rant about this kind of stuff all the time, but it is nowhere near the level of what Adrian just laid down. But I'll do my little part here. So, resume formatting. I've talked about this a lot over the years with my students, and I've sort of boiled it down to a 4-tier visual hierarchy that I think is worth spending 5 minutes on. So here we go. How to advance my slides. There we go. Put the focus in the right window. I talk about the whole package in my portfolio classes at Drexel. Hi, I'm Rob Lloyd, by the way. That's all you need to know. Three-legged stool, the factual, verifiable stuff on your resume, the demonstration of your skills in your portfolio, and the oft ignored, often hated, and occasionally useful, therefore, why not toss it in there, the enthusiasm and intangible storytelling possibilities of the cover letter. All of these things are about supporting the hiring manager, asking you questions for which you have great answers. You don't want to prompt them to ask you questions for which you have crappy answers. Then things spin out of your control. So we're here to talk about the resume and this 4-tier visual hierarchy, verifiable, quantified facts about you. The portfolio, demonstration of skill, cover letter, intangible stories, that's for another time. Resume, verifiable facts, quantifiable facts. So 4-tier visual hierarchy, your name, the section headers, job titles, and the thing that people never think about doing necessarily is bolding keywords within each job experience. And so let's see that a little bit closer. Biggest thing on the page is your name. Let there be no doubt whose resume it is. And also make sure your name is in the resume file name. So it's not just resume.pdf. Too many people get too many copies of that file. Second level, the section headers. And so they can easily jump around from one area to another of what interests them most. What are they looking for? What is their particular threshold that they're measuring by? You don't really have control over that. So you just want to make it easy for them to get from one thing to another with ease. Job titles. Most people highlight the job company. I am saying the job title is generally more important, and they're going to pick up a brand name in the company anyway. So highlight what you did, not who you did it for. And again, the 4th tier is within the bullet points under each experience entry, bolding up the keywords that are going to be most relevant to that hiring manager who's reviewing this material. So that top header section, your name. I don't care what name you use. I just want you to be consistent about it across all your materials and all your platforms. Same avatar, same name, whatever it is, however you want to represent yourself, just be consistent about it so that you're not creating ambiguity of, is this really the same person? I don't know. It's a different face. It's a different avatar. It's a different name. Could be different. Time to use your professional email address and not your whiz bang pop 39 whatever at Yahoo. Pick your silly name. Give them at least one way to learn more about you. At least your LinkedIn and your portfolio. Generally, giving both is fine. You don't have to spell out the HTTPS kind of thing. It's a PDF that they're most likely reviewing, and you can just call it whatever you want and then hide the gobbledygook behind that. And with the portfolio specifically, you can make that a very messy URL that takes them directly to the most relevant content that you're trying to show that specific company. In terms of formatting, I'm not going to go too much into this because I'm probably already at 5 minutes. You can just use tables in some sections, and you can selectively put in tables when you need to have things at the same level, flush left over here, flush right over here. Look, there's a GIF. We don't have time for this. Let's move on. But tables are very handy, and I use them throughout the template. Wait till the end. There's a QR code for the template. Ooh. Second tier of that visual hierarchy, the section headers. Clearly named, unambiguous, most relevant at the top. Now, in this education, skills, work experience, project experience, fine. But if what you did as your project experience, that's unpaid, unhired work, student projects, personal projects, game jams, if that's the most relevant to the job, then put that at the top. But the order I'm less concerned about in this 5 minutes. It's more about, let's use styles and have them consistently formatted, so you don't have something slightly indented differently, something in a slightly different font. If you use styles within your word processing tool, then they're going to be nice and consistent. So style formatting, this is a GIF showing using it in Word and using like title formatting for the name, and then heading 1 for the section headers and heading 2 for the job titles, so that if you want to make a global change, this makes it really easy. And here it's showing the design tool within Word where you could just radically switch things up. And if you've used styles for your content consistently, this kind of stuff is really easy and allows you to experiment, test with different opportunities. Third tier, job titles. Again, generally more important than the company name. These are my opinions. You can fight me outside. Go ahead. Let's wait for me out in the alley. We can go fisticuffs, whatever you want to do. But generally, job title is going to be more important. Hey, you could have worked for Nintendo, but you were the janitor. It's an honorable profession, and it's a great way to make a living, but maybe not as relevant if you're going for a level design position. So what you did is more important than who you did it for. So again, same document style, heading to whatever it is, and then have them all nice and evenly, consistently presented. I find stuff like this, everybody has their little things that they get upset about. I'm sensitive to things being poorly aligned and messily, sloppily arrayed across the page. I think about your consideration of detail and whether you are precise in the way you work. And unfair or not, I'm judging you. Deal with it. Let's go on to the next one. Wait a second. One more thing on the job title thing. You're fighting to get everything onto one page because everybody's always yelled at you. You got to have a one-page resume. We can have that fight another time. Again, get in line in the alleyway. But let's look at a simple way of formatting that we can use on a single line. Job title, company location, that's all flush left. And then you use a simple tab that is flush right on the same line, and it's all nice and tidy. And you keep all your dates in a nice, neat column on the far right of the page, which makes it really easy for a hiring manager to see your consistent employment or your lack therein. So what have you. So, and other weird phrases. Of course, always reverse chronological in your experiences. Let's take a look at another GIF. Hey, we have GIFs. If you want to know, in Word, you go into the paragraph dialog, and you select the button for tabs, and then you can define it. In this case, it's 7.5 inches, the same as the margin of this page. And we set that tab in the dialog that opens up to be flush right. And that's how you get it. More info on one line, efficient use of space. Woohoo! Fourth tier, the one that nobody thinks about. And this one I think is useful because a bot, okay, fine. The bot's going to scan it and find whatever is legible. So don't submit a resume that's a PNG or it's all a raster image. Why would you do that? Students have done that for me. So I'm telling you, it can be done. So don't do it. Anyhow, a bot scans for words, but a human scanning through, nobody reads a resume like it's poetry. They don't read every word. They look for the good stuff. And so you can help them find the good stuff faster. Tools, Unity, Unreal, procedural generation, whatever it is, you want to be able to suddenly, sorry, got distracted, looked at the chat. You want to be able to call their attention to it really quickly. And again, really side element here, I'm mostly talking formatting, but if your bullet points under these job entries are basically job descriptions, burn it. Don't bother. Job title is most likely going to tell them what the job entailed. You want to make stuff that you want to put lines in here that quantify, and you want to quantify for scope, like how big was the project? How many people did you work with? Hey, I made art assets. All right, how many art assets? Did you make 2? Or did you make 200 or 2,000? But beyond scope, you want to quantify for impact. You want to quantify for impact to say, before me, it was done this way, and it took this long, and the results were at this level. And after me, it took much less time, and the quality was higher, and all of these things. So you're trying to show the impact that you made, and you can bold those keywords as well. Now, Formatting wise, I don't care what you do with the other 3 tiers of the visual hierarchy, but I suggest strongly that you keep the keywords within your job entries purely bolding. So it's control B or control not to be, just to make sure that it's super easy, because these are things you're going to be tuning and adjusting, possibly with every resume that you submit to every different job description, because you're trying to reflect that apples to apples language that they put in the job description. You're trying to reflect that back in your materials. Oof. Coming to the end here, last little bonus item. Again, personally, I don't care if you have a stylish resume. I want information, and I want it neat, tidy, and efficiently. But there are hiring managers out there who will be greatly annoyed, or even just slightly annoyed, and every little annoyance can count against you, that your resume for a creative position doesn't have a little pinch of creativity to it. So here's a really stupid, simple way to make a bit of line art. And yes, this is a ugly little thing I slapped together when in a live demo or whatever. That's my MFA in practice right there, baby. But showing that you can bring in an image like this into Word, and as soon as you bring it in, it messes with all your formatting, but you right click on it and set the text wrap to behind text, and then you can throw it wherever you want, and it doesn't mess with your formatting. And you can bring in a little bit of color, a little bit of style, a little bit of custom art into your resume without having to build your resume in Canva or Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever. Just maintain it in a word processing document. You can do everything you need to in that process, and it's going to be far more sustainable over time than building it in some customizable tool. Well, the last thing I believe is, here's a QR code for the resume template. I took the liberty of putting it on the IGDA Philly Google Drive, and this theoretically should work and get you my resume template if you should care to have that little starter for your resume formatting. So that's all I got, and I'm sure that was more than 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Good night.
I know mine was more than 5 minutes. Thank you so much, Rob. RJ asking also if you can also share the slides as well. I'm going to add, I'm just going to say really quickly that as someone who has not had to think about their resume for the last couple of years and also doesn't take a class with you, I'm probably going to be watching this video. I can see myself like watching this video a couple of times in the future. So that is really, really great info. Thank you so much for sharing, Rob. We got a couple of questions happening in the chat for you. Kelsey asks, what's the thing that is most likely to make you want to disregard someone's resume at first glance?
Probably if it's so heavily styled that I can't read it. I think I like first knee-jerk reaction is probably that. I'm probably more forgiving of them not having things neatly aligned or having a clean layout, even though that will bug me. I'm more likely to roll my eyes and go to the next person if it's just so ornate that they spent more time on the formatting of it than the content. So that's, I don't know, that's probably unfair, but there you have it. And yes, I'll have to boil my slides down, because this is actually part of a larger slide deck that goes into all legs of the stool. But I can do that. Ryan asks, do you find that reverse chronological role-based presentation is seen as more preferable by recruiting teams over skills-based resume organization? So you're talking basically like, some people call it a functional resume, rather than going experience item by experience item, saying, I don't have direct experience that you might find relevant, but I have the skills that are relevant. And here, let me show you those. And then you can sort of support them. And so that kind of, so you're industry adjacent, you're looking to make a transition perhaps, or I don't talk enough to students about functional resumes very early on in their careers when they're freshmen, sophomores, or whatever, and they're going for their first co-op at Drexel. and they may have no practical experience, but they have skills. A functional resume is a really good way of just saying, here's what I'm capable of doing. It's basically taking that skill section and elaborating and treating that like you have bullet points and are quantifying and listing out your skills, and then tying that to, well, I have people skills, and that's because I've worked in retail, or I have, general programming skills that aren't game related, but I've done this kind of stuff in cybersecurity, in the financial sector, or whatever. So, I did slip in Control B or not to be, didn't I? All right. I've used that in class, and I'm never quite sure if I remember to say it. It's a very silly thing, but there you go. I'm an old man. I'm allowed puns. So yeah, functional resumes can be very useful. I don't talk about them enough, and I probably need to. Jason, you touched on this, but do you think it's more beneficial for resumes to be formatted simply in case they're processed by machines before they get to a human? Yeah, again, personally, I'm all for simple. And if you get too ornate and you do too much with fancy columns and having triple columns or sidebars, there is a risk that it won't be scanned accurately by a bot. So, and I think more and more the large organizations are using stuff, but I mean, I'm going to reflect this back to you, Jason. Does PHL Collective use any kind of automation in their application process, or is it all manual? Dare you say? Yeah, and at the scale of PHL Collective, I would expect that, but you never know. More and more of these tools are being accessible to people. So I would just, again, I would put that pinch of design in, but I wouldn't overcomplicate it, because then it becomes illegible to a poor little bots. And the poor little bots, how are they going to take over the world if they can't read your resume? Who do you suggest we send resumes to for review? I do it all the time for my students. So all you have to do is pay Drexel's tuition, and you get free resume review from me. I actually do it for my alum all the time. I look at their resumes and their portfolios. It's one of the main classes I teach at Drexel beyond freshman classes and senior projects. So I'm a little obsessed about it, as you might have noticed. So boom. There you go. And Kelsey, thanks for the manual stuff. Yeah, it is a lot of work to go through all this stuff, which is why I want to help people make, to me, the overarching theme or framing that I'm starting to give to my students is that we are designers of visual experiences. You are designing your application package to be a great experience for the player. And the player in this case is the hiring manager. And your job is to do all the heavy lifting up front so that when they receive your material, it's as easy as possible for them to get to the good stuff and to decide whether you're awesome or super awesome.